Hello, I think I am live. I've heard that my sound is not quality is not so good, so hopefully this is okay and hopefully you guys can all hear me. I may have to do a little bit of figuring out what is going on with my sound if I need to buy something to allow my sound to be a little bit better. But I am in a different room. I am in my kitchen and I'm normally in my office space recording videos, so I'm hoping this is a little bit better for you guys. But today is Wednesday and I'm super excited. I do want to just give a little bit of an announcement for what's going on, I guess, in my life. So I did just announce early access to my ebook, which contains a lot of plant-based recipes, especially for female endurance runners. But there's 11 plant-based recipes, so if you are anybody that is interested in plant-based eating, definitely get that ebook. I also just released an email campaign, so the next 2 weeks you will be getting emails and information from me, really breaking down and talking more about the nutrients that I talked about in my last video. But today, which leads into our topic today, is one of the first emails that I talk about, and that is protein. So that is what I want to talk about today. So if you are somebody that is eating plant-based, wanting to go plant-based, you are an athlete or a runner and also plant-based, and trying to figure out, how do I get enough protein? How do I know I'm eating enough? What do I know that, like what foods are like what protein can I get from plants? I mean, all these things, right, that we question, we don't know. I think most of the nutrition information that is out there, I think a lot of us know now that it is possible to get enough protein on a plant-based diet as an athlete, a runner. But there's still a lot of, I think, a little bit of myths to kind of still around this protein, because we certainly feel like, I think we need more than what we might actually need, and you may be getting enough protein and you might not even realize it, or you may not be as conscious about it that you think you really are. So there's lots of things we could talk about around that, right? But I think protein is one of the things that I have been asked probably the most about when it comes to eating plant-based and protein, because a lot of you I know are either runners or athletes, and protein we know is important, right? We know we need protein to help us, right? Especially for muscle building, for recovery, right? It really, what protein does in your body is it really has to do with our muscles, right? So a lot of times when I was teaching kids, I would always ask them, what does protein do for us? Why do you need protein? And I would always flex my guns, and they say muscles. And I was like, yes, that is right. Your muscles, right? So protein is so important for that recovery, for the strength building. So it's not just strength building, but it's also recovery. So protein is really important, especially when you're breaking down muscles, and you really need to have that protein, right? So protein for, any athlete's important for before and also after workouts, right? So both are really important, but I do think protein is really important after workouts, because it really has to do a lot with recovery, and that can really help you to recover. You are making sure that you are getting protein. So I know that is especially important. But anyways, one of my first tips to getting more protein is meal prepping. I think meal prep is so important, because if you're concerned about not eating enough plant proteins because you're eating proteins, well, first of all of your veggies that you probably are eating have protein. You might not even think it does, but they really do. Veggies are really protein and carbs, really what they are. But there's always a little bit. They're just might not considered high protein, right? But there is protein in them. Excuse me, but I think one tip that I can share that's important is if you're concerned about, you know, you're not being as conscious as you could about getting enough protein in your diet and getting from plant sources, right, is to meal prep. So meal prep is so important, especially if you don't want to just get your protein from shakes or bars or those kind of things, because they have added sugar, right? Especially if you are trying to lose weight at the same time, that kind of thing. You might not want to have those extra calories, that extra sugar, or if you're just trying to be healthier and you want to be healthier, right? You don't want that extra sugar and preservatives that are in those bars, right? So meal prep. I can't emphasize how important this is. I have gotten into the habit of this. It was hard for me at first. I did do something, you know, I used this system that was really helpful for me to really get started, and I'm not using it as much, and sometimes I thought about going back, but I think it really showed me, you know, what proper portion sizes should be. It helped me to eat more during the day, and I realized what my weakness was, is that I did not eat enough during the day. And when I ate smaller meals and more meals during the day, it helped me. And not to say that is the best way everybody should eat. There's certainly a lot of evidence of showing different ways that are effective for people to eat. But I know for me and my body and the changes that I saw, eating small meals throughout the day was so helpful. But, you know, meal prepping is really that first step, and it'll really, you know, when I'm talking about these other tips, it's all related to that meal prep. And that's why that's so important, because you're not going to be able to hit how much protein you want to eat, or, you know, just, you know, being able to eat the amount of protein that you need to is going to be difficult, right? If you don't meal prep, especially if you want to get those plant proteins from your plant sources, right? So my next tip is how much protein do you really need, right? So I just really want to focus on endurance runners. So this may be different than something that's trying to gain strength, or a bodybuilder, right? This is a little bit different. They would need more protein. But for and I'm also specifically talking about females, because it can also be different for males, right? So for females, 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilograms of protein is what is recommended. So, you know, that is how much protein that really is all we need, and it is more than the average amount. So an average amount of protein per day for an average person would be 0.8 grams per kilogram. So it is a little bit more, right? Because we are breaking down muscle when we are running or working out. We're breaking down muscles, so we need to replace that protein, right? We need to recover those muscles, so we're going to have to eat protein in order to do that, and we're going to need a little bit more. But I think you'll be surprised at how much that's really not as much more as you might think it really is. So 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram, so you have to know your body weight. So if you know your body weight, you can just calculate it and figure out how many grams you would need. And that can help you to figure out grams of protein that you need for the day. But even though that is how much you need for the day, I think it's also important to know, and my next tip is to eat protein consistently throughout the day. So a lot of us eat protein, or I should say in the average diet, we eat a lot of protein at the end of our day. Not a lot in the beginning. A lot of our breakfast foods are low in protein, right? Lunch, maybe you'll eat a little bit, but mostly at dinner, right? Because an average meal at dinner would be a hamburger or a steak or chicken or something like that, right? And maybe for lunch you only have a salad, you might not even have any protein, right? So it's important, and there's research to back this up, that we eat protein a consistent amount throughout the day. So meaning you try to hit, around the same amount of protein at each of those meals that you have. You don't want to build up all your protein at the end. And like I said before, it is important to depending on when you work out. Like, you need to make sure you get protein before you work out. You need to make sure you get protein after you work out too, right? So it's important within those windows also, but it is important, to make sure that there's protein throughout the day and you're not just eating it at one time. And that'll really help too. And I did just read a study that talked about how much protein. So if your body only needs so much, and the rest of it will oxidize and it won't actually use that up. It'll use it up for other things, but not for what you're eating it for, basically, right? So I believe it was 20 to 25 milligrams. So any more than that, like per meal, really isn't beneficial. So you may have heard this too. Well, I don't think I really need that much protein because, my body is only going to use so much, or, it doesn't even matter whether I have more or not because it's going to just use it if it needs it and then the rest is gone, right? Yes, but, it's also, I think, important to keep that in mind, how much protein that you actually need, because if it is hard for you to eat bar protein, then that can be helpful to really know what those targets are, right? So what else is my other tip? So first tip is meal prep, and that goes along even with eating protein evenly throughout the day, right? Meal prepping is important. 1.2 to 1.4 milligrams per day is recommended for female endurance runners. My third tip was eating even amount protein throughout the day. My other tip is to choose high protein foods at each meal. So again, this goes back to meal prepping. If you've got your meal prep done, then you will already have chosen those high protein plant foods, right? So what are those foods? Well, if you've got my ebook or you've gotten any of my emails, you may already know this answer. Chickpeas. Chickpeas are very high in protein. I joke all the time when I tell people about chickpeas that one day I think I'm going to turn into a chickpea, because I literally eat chickpeas every day. They are just my favorite bean. I mean, there's any bean that you choose is going to be high in protein. So there's black beans, there's pinto beans, there's what else is there? Black-eyed beans. My two favorite that I seem to use a lot are chickpeas and black beans. But right, there's even kidney beans, right? There's so many different beans. So if you get sick of a bean, just try a different bean, right? Or I've even tried like a soup and put a mixture of beans in it. It was just something different than I normally have. So beans are huge. There's so definitely high protein in your beans. Lentils, again, are high in protein. Those are definitely high in protein. There's tofu. I can't forget about tofu and tempeh. So tofu and tempeh are soy-based products, but they are high in protein. So I do also a lot of tofu, not so much tempeh, but I have been trying to include tempeh into my diet because I've been really just eating chickpeas and tofu for my protein. And then I'm also trying to eat more whole foods and less processed foods. So for a while, I really got into those chicken patties, which is so bad. But now I think I'm just sick of them and realize that they're really not healthy. They're not whole foods. They're not, they're processed meat, even though it's vegan. So I'm really trying to get out of that and go to more whole whole food plant proteins, and they are out there, but we also think, you know, experimenting with different recipes and finding different recipes. Like, there's tons of plant-based recipes out there. I can certainly point you guys in the direction if you are looking for certain recipes. There's a couple sites that I really, really like that I've taken a lot of plant-based vegan meals from that I use so much, and a lot of the recipes have came out really well. So, okay, so that was my 4th tip. So what was my last tip? So I have one more tip to eating more protein. Excuse me. Finding different ways to enjoy protein. So I kind of already started to mention this, but I know for me, a lot of the meals I make are very repetitive. And I know some people, he's talking to my parents, they're like, Kayla, we can never eat like you because we can't eat the same meals every day. Well, there's also different ways to prepare your meals. You could always do a different way. Like for me, it's just so easy. And the way I like it is, like, preparing my chickpeas is I like to bake them. And that's just how I really like to do my chickpeas. Same thing with my kale. I like to bake them too, into kale chips. But I don't have to do that. I could have a kale salad. I could add chickpeas to a salad. I could, you know, there's certainly different things. I could make soups. I could make a stew, a casserole. There's so many different ways. I've even made chickpea cookies before, which have been a huge hit. People have absolutely loved them, and they're also gluten-free, so it's just a win-win. So for people that are gluten-free also, or maybe you're dairy-free and have, you know, those allergies, it's really a really good recipe when you're really craving something sweet too. And let's see, what else was there? Was there any other tips? I think that was it for that. So those are my 5 tips. My 5 main tips on protein is meal prep. Meal prep is huge. You know, knowing how much that you need, the total amount of protein, so you can figure out the calculation based on 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram. And then also, as I said, not only is the total amount of protein important, but also having an equal amount at meals is also important. And then my other tip was choosing those high protein plant proteins at each meal. And then my last tip was to find different ways to enjoy them, so you don't always have to prepare those foods the same way. Okay, so questions. Amber had a question. Yay! So do you ever use spices like curry or cumin? I love vegan Indian food. Oh, that is a good question. So I do love spices. I use a lot of garlic powder, Italian seasoning, and turmeric is one of my favorites. But I did just also buy cumin, which is really, if you use cumin and you want a flavor of like tacos, like taco meat, it works really well. Like, I made taco meat with just like tofu crumbles, or you could use tempeh, add cumin, and basically would be taco meat. So cumin and turmeric have, you know, like tons of health benefits, so they're really good spices for you, right? I just recently actually read an article on cumin, so I made sure that I bought that when I was at Aldi's last time I was there, because I heard about the benefits of cumin, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should be using that. So I got some of that. Curry, I'm not just too big of a fan of, but again, like, it's another great spice. If you really like that, I would definitely say go for it. Also with spices, you know, they do have those health benefits, which is awesome. And those nutrition benefits, but the thing is too, if those spices are going to flavor your food and make it so you enjoy that food more, then do it, right? Why not? Because there's not any calories, or not much calories, that are going to come from those spices. And I think spicing your food is definitely a great way to flavor your food. And then use not as much sodium, right? Because a lot of us, you know, on average, don't need as much sodium. Yes, that's a little different, I would say, for people that work out and run because we lose salt in our sweat, right? But it really depends on how much. If you're really just sweating for an hour at the gym, you might not really be losing that much sodium to really be, eating high sodium foods at each meal kind of thing. So, okay. So, any more questions does anybody have? So I think that was really it for my tips on protein. I hope that was helpful. As I said, I do get this question a lot about plant proteins, but I really do believe that it is possible. And I get asked too a lot about protein shakes, and I will give my opinion on those. So with protein shakes, I do personally take a protein shake myself, and for me, it's just an easy way to get a good amount of protein quickly. So that's what I really like about protein shakes, is that if you don't have time to really cook a meal, or maybe you're somebody, I know, like personally for me, after runs, sometimes I'm not hungry right after, and that can be really hard because I know within that hour I need to have carbs and protein, right? So sometimes I try to figure out, what's the best thing I can do? Well, let's just have a protein shake. So my protein shake that I take is a plant protein, and it has 20 grams of protein in it. So I take that protein shake. So, protein shakes are options, and they are available. And I think what's really nice with protein shakes is that, as I said, it's a quick way to get protein, because there's research saying that we need to, to recover our muscles, have that protein within that window within an hour. But that said, there's also not side effects, but negatives of protein shakes too, right? Because we know that we absorb our food better, or we absorb our nutrients better from fruit. So sometimes supplements are needed, especially on a vegan diet. But if you can get your nutrients from food, that is what's most, you should try to do that as much as you can, because of the bioavailability and the absorption rate of those, and the quality, right, of the nutrients from our food. So we always say food first if possible. Definitely food first, but if you are struggling too with getting enough protein, especially right after your workout, go for it. I think it's a great idea, definitely, to do. And there's another question. Yay! So what exactly is different from tempeh and tofu? That is a good question. I wish I had tempeh with me. It's a little bit different texture. So tofu it's more moist. Tofu, I always have to, I really have to press it out. So with tofu, what I do is I usually slice it, I put it on a cutting board, I put a paper towel down, and then I cover it with a paper towel, and then I usually put something heavy. I usually use like a pot or something, and I put that over it, and that'll get some of the moisture out, because there's a lot of moisture in tofu. And tempeh is a little different texture. It's really made out of the same thing. They're both soybeans. They're both made out of soybeans, but tempeh, it's a little bit bumpy and crumbly. And it's drier. So a tempeh is nice for if you want kind of like a meatier texture. I think tempeh would make sense. Tofu is a little bit, I would say, just, again, it's really just the texture. It's more moist, really, than anything. I've used tofu to make scrambled, they looks like scrambled eggs when I add my turmeric in it. So tofu really has kind of that look if you scramble it of eggs. Tempeh would be more like, it would look more like ground beef, I guess, kind of thing. So hopefully that answers that. But yeah, those are really good questions. And any more questions you guys have? Yogurt is low fat, way worse than Non-fat. Well, I won't get into the different types of fats and when I kind of think about that, but yes. Um, yeah. But yogurt does have protein, right? So yogurt is another thing that you can have. Well, I guess if you eat dairy, right? But with plant protein, I do. I don't think there's any protein though in my yogurt. So I do eat yogurt, but it is coconut based. There's also almond yogurt, which might have a little bit more protein, but not a lot, as far as I know. And the coconut yogurt that I eat does not have a lot of protein. So no, there's not a lot of protein in your plant-based yogurts, except for soy. No, that's right. There is soy yogurt also. So soy yogurt, of course, soy is high in protein. So that would be high in yogurt. Or high in yogurt, high in protein. Yes, so there is soy yogurt. But with soy, which is really another topic that I don't want to get too much into, but I will talk just explain a little bit about soy. And there's lots of research on soy, and really the benefits and negative effects of eating a lot of soy. And for me, what I've taken from the research that I know is moderation is key. Just like anything, moderation. So I really try to consider what I eat that's soy. So since I do tofu, and I might do soybeans and things like that, instead of having that soy yogurt, I've been doing the coconut or almond yogurt. So I try to kind of choose. I also use veganase because I use it for a chickpea salad, which is very much like a chicken salad. And it's really like mayonnaise, right? There's a soy-based ones and there's a soy-free. And I usually choose the one that's soy-free, just because I know I'm getting soy from other sources. I try to be aware of that, to not be taking in too much soy. But soy is definitely a great source of protein, right? So that is my little spiel on protein. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video on protein and hope that answered some of your questions, maybe help you to figure out how to get more protein in your diet if you're concerned about getting enough protein, if you're getting enough. And of course, I am here to help. So if you guys have any questions on plant proteins, definitely just send me a message, reach out to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. If anybody, is, really struggling and trying to figure out, well, how do I do this, Kayla? I have no idea how much protein I need. I have no idea how much I should have at each meal. I have no idea how to figure out, what that even means, how much would be in these foods or how much, and you're so confused and you're like, I don't even know. I can help. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to help you any way I can. And if you have not grabbed that ebook yet, please do. It is free. So please you can just email me and let me know if you are interested. All I would need is your email and I can send you that ebook. So that is it for today. I hope you guys really got something out of this video and enjoyed it. And I will talk to you guys all soon. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.